What up? Welcome to another episode of The Void, broadcasting live from the Shop Studios in Northeast Florida, Jackson. Exactly. Everybody, Step Rock Beats on track. As per the usual, right, we got one person one person on Facebook, one person on YouTube. What's up, everybody joining? Probably get a couple more people in here, before we start the actual show. Just remember, tell your friends, get some folks, because this is really a fellowship of, trying to figure out what the hell is up with our world. So yeah, Step Rock Beats. Welcome. Last episode of the 2019 year. Now, normally this would be broadcast on Tuesday night, but with the holidays and all that mess and all this stuff, I just had to change the time. Now, oddly enough, this track is called Chemtrails, which I think one of my first episode out of some recent episodes. We talked about chemtrails. So we had some discussion about that. Not to say that there isn't some truth behind the whole notion of chemtrails, but I think a lot of that is sort of mixed up. Chemtrails, Step Rock Beats. Link is in the description. All right, so today, what are we talking about? So it's the outro, not of the Void itself as a show forever, kind of outro, not like the end of the album outro. It is outro for 2019. And, in all our discussions throughout all these episodes and whatever, I never claimed to be very super spiritual kind of guy. I'm not big on the ethereal, but I'll tell you what, man, sort of the universe, or whatever you want to call it, the ethereal is doing some crazy stuff, and I think it's really exciting to be privy to some of that. Now, one of the things that's related to that is sort of this notion that 2019 somehow, some way, is this sort of year of cleansing. That's a word I hear a lot, cleansing. But that can be, that doesn't have to be like homegirl, what's her name, that asks you if something brings you joy. And like, if it doesn't, God, I can't remember her name. One of you guys knows her name. It's on Netflix or some crap. Anyway, I'm not talking about decluttering your house or something, though that cleansing could be part of what you need. But really, it's a time of introspection and a time of yeah, I mean, cleansing could be people that are not vibing with you. Like, for instance, if you're not vibing, or if you're not going where you're supposed to be going, if you're not on the right track, then, you know, sometimes the people that you're with aren't there on that track with you. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, let me back up. You might be on the wrong track, and then you have to really be introspective and think about where is it that you want to be, and are the people that you're around willing to be on that journey with you, right? So it could be a cleansing of people around you, influence, etc. Could be physical cleansing of the environment that you live in, or maybe moving to a new place, cleansing that environment. Something, because whatever it is, it's in preparation for this next upcoming time, right? 2020. Now, every year, I think there's a contingent of folks that's like, oh, this year sucked. Next year, DJ Complexion, for instance, always has like whatever period of time, like next day, best day, next week, best week, next year, best year. With the notion that the outlook for the future to be positive, right? Because I'm finally sort of getting it, this idea that you will get what you will get a reflection of what you put out in the world. So if you put out a bunch of negativity in the world, then all you can expect to receive in return is negativity of some degree. At least that's what it seems to be like. Now, if you have different experiences, then please jump on this. This show is not about me yapping away about what I think. This is a show that's literally a fellowship of truth. What does that mean? Actually, that's a topic I want to discuss, the actual word truth, because I had a pretty interesting discussion today with an old friend of mine, and and it really called into question the way, I guess, the premise of the show. Because in my understanding, when I talk about truth, the word truth, not capitalized truth as in truth in the religious sense, like you believe something so desperately that it becomes true to you. That's not, to me, that is not the definition of truth that I'm working on. So hold on, let me pull up so this is something we do on the show. Sometimes we talk about definitions of words, and now truth is a pretty easy word, you would think, but I think there's there's a point of contention there in the details of how you use the word. All right, so by the way, let's get some shout outs, live chat. Superfan Chris is on the stream. What's up, man? Thank you for joining. And looks like we got someone else on there. If you want to be, looks like we got a couple folks. Go ahead and jump on and let us know what's up. One person on Facebook, what's up? Hello, thanks for tuning in. We're talking about truth. What the hell is that in the time of in a world of alternative facts? Is there such a thing as truth? And my point is yes, because the truth exists whether or not we do. So you can define it how you want. The truth don't give a shit about how you define it. When I speak of truth, I mean absolute truth. I'm not talking about you read some scriptures and now you think it's true just because or I don't know, somebody told you something and you believed it so much that it became true for you. Or even if your experience dictates something. Like, for instance, one of the the point, like, I'm talking about a point of literal, absolute causal chain of events led to something happening. And that is the truth, right? So your interpretation of that event is irrelevant to the event itself, if that makes sense, right? So, and that was harder to sort of get across than I had thought. So let's talk about the definition per Google, because I mean, I don't know who's this coming from. I think they extract it from somewhere, probably Miriam or some amalgam of places, but this is just what comes up. Now we can dig into like deeper meanings, as in philosophical truth and other things like that. But let's just go through, there's a few different meanings here that I think suffice to cover the most, I mean, the spectrum of uses for the word truth. All right, truth, Truth, right? Noun, the quality or state of being true. He had to accept the truth of her accusation, right? So so the accusation is, you could say that that is her truth, but it would either be true or not true. If the accusation was false, then it was not true. So even if she believed what she was saying about whatever this accusation is in this sentence, her quote unquote truth would not be true if it were not in fact true in the material world. The second definition, that which is true or in accordance with fact or reality, right? Tell me the truth, right? So this is something in accordance with fact or reality, right? So again, your feelings about this situation or your even existence at all, my existence, anybody's, the humanity as a whole, humans could cease to exist and the truth would still exist, right? That's what I'm talking about with truth. Now, the person, my old friend I was talking to, was using the definition of truth that entails a fact or belief that is accepted as true, right? I've accepted as true that the earth is flat, right? So if that's the case, then great, that's what you accept as true. However, your accepted belief is false, right? And can be proven false. So these are these are some of the little nuances that we have to get across if we're going to have like a discussion and things. Words have meaning for a reason, right? So that we can discuss things and know what we're talking about, or at least have a semblance of reference to a specific thing. Like for instance, think about this: if you were raised by wolves, what language would be in your mind? Right. I think I would assume that all of us have some type of voice in our mind. If you were raised with no language, what language, quote unquote, does the voice speak in? Right. So it's important that words have meaning and language exists so that we as people can talk to each other. Right. What is language if there's only one person that exists at all? Then yeah, what would we, it's hard to even fathom a situation like that, where you are devoid of communication and so therefore have no language. Like if you were raised by wolves, I guess you would have the communication method of the wolves, and you would be able to, I guess, with time, if you survived that long to make a difference. To have reached a point of consciousness to where you would normally have a voice in your mind, or right, that inner voice, the inner dialogue. Would it be like wolf noises, or would it be simple? Would it be driven by urges and instinct? I don't know. You guys tell me. We've got a live chat open here. We got Skype stream available, or Skype link available. You can Skype in and yap it out if you don't want to type it. I don't even have to show your face if you're camera shy. We can just pipe. I can push the audio through only if you want. Think about that. So truth, again, when we talk about truth, when I'm talking about truth, it's it is an absolute truth, not like something where, capital T truth, as in like you believe in some spiritual thing. Like I believe that but my truth is Poseidon. It dictates the actions of the sea. So does that mean it's true in material reality? If according to the third definition that we saw, a fact or belief that is accepted as true, then yeah, it fits as in the word truth. So we have to be very careful about what we mean by the word truth. So when I refer to truth, being something that can hurt and that is weakness leaving your mind, that is an absolute truth that exists without our involvement. So anyway, and what's the point to that? Well, the point is, so the main point came from sort of an offshoot of this podcast. So what I'm starting to work on is something basically called, I don't know, the fellowship or fellowship. So in lieu of church, it's a gathering place where people can come and discuss things that are on their mind, sort of like this show. But, it's in a physical place. You can actually talk to people right there. And it has a lot of the same elements of church, quote unquote church, except for the religion part, right? So all the God talk about, like, I mean, if you want to talk about God, it's in a nebulous, non-judging God, as in whatever. I don't even know. Like, I don't talk about it in that way. So it's not like, really we take some of the core universal goods that we see in religion. So a lot of times people defend their religion by saying, well, it's good because of this and this and this. Well, in the fellowship, we take some of those elements and then we talk about it. And really, honestly, it's less about extracting from religion something good. It's more that, look, if religion happens to coincide with some of the things that we're talking about within the fellowship, it's a fellowship of people with other people, right? Why? What's the big deal? Well, number one, religion as a social construction, even as a entity or existence as it exists, is now becoming something that is sort of questionable. People are turning away from in many senses, away from religious doctrine as it is, right? So they know there's a moral component somewhere in that they feel or know that society should have some kind of moral grounding. And the only place that they've ever seen or have had that type of, I guess, I don't know, feeling or philosophy or something promulgated is through church. Promulgated or promulgated. Hold on. That's another pretty interesting, big word. You see that word in finance a lot. It basically means to promulgate or, promulgate. Hold on, let me find the thing so I can show you guys. So it means to basically disseminate, or I mean that's also a pretty big word. Here it is, right here. Here's the definition. I won't keep giving you synonyms. Promote, promulgate, promulgate. Verb, promote or make widely known an idea or cause, or similar, put a law or decree into effect by official proclamation, right? So any kind of moral grounding has pretty much been the environment of religion. It's been the only vector for so long. Other than you get sort of self-help stuff and maybe, I don't know, it always seems like something devolves into some weird cult or something. Probably because it gets co-opted somehow by some monetary gain structure. But believe it or not, just like this, it's not like I'm making any money off of this thing. And even if it monetizes, it's like I probably won't make any. Even if I made some money, it all gets dumped back into this thing anyway, because the whole point is to grow the audience in order to fellowship, right? Some more. It's hard to have quote unquote fellowship, and even that's been a hijacked term from religion. But what is that? It's just and when I talk about going to this gathering, like say on Sundays, for instance, instead of church, you go to fellowship, where we don't talk about like Vishnu or Allah or even Jesus. We just talk about basically how to be better people. Now, who defines that, right? Well, I think we can define that through fellowship, right? We talk about it, and we have sort of a basis to work on. So really the sort of core basis that that fellowship will be built upon are the four agreements that are based on Toltec Indian philosophies, right? So for one of the first, or four agreements in no specific order, the first one that I'm going to say is don't make assumptions, right? So in the context of the fellowship, we would, as much as possible, make sure that we're not making assumptions about something. So if we don't know for sure, then we'll just ask, or we can describe, let's describe a situation, but let's not assume something is one way or another unless something's explicitly spoken. Let's not assume its existence or truth, right, in something we've invented in our own mind. Another agreement is to always do your best, right? So your best can change if you're sick or injured, or I don't know, maybe you're just in a bad mood. Sometimes your best may not be your ultimate best, but it doesn't matter. It's you strive to do your best, right? And only you are the judge of that. So of course, this is something you always try to do the best you can. Like, for instance, going back to that first one I listed, don't make assumptions. It's so easy to make assumptions about anything because I believe it's because we have, as humans, have a tendency to protect ourselves. And so by making an assumption, we are able to defend ourselves from future harm. Like, for instance, I ate a red berry and it made me sick. So I see a cherry that's red and I'm like, should I eat that cherry or not? Right. So making assumptions a lot of times it makes sense biologically, evolutionarily speaking, all of these things. But in the societal construct, or in the, within, we're, talking with each other, we shouldn't make assumptions about that person or their beliefs or whatever, right? Always do your best. You just simply, it's something that you have to take ownership of and always strive to do, right? And sometimes we'll slip and fall, but that's okay because we're doing our best and we always learn from our mistakes, right? Another of the four agreements is don't take anything personal, right? That's one of the hardest ones because, again, we go back to trying to protect ourselves, fight or flight. We have this reptilian brain that sometimes is about as smart as a reptile, right? So we have all of this extra gray matter, but sometimes we default back to the core brain that we have had since forever, right? And so when we take things personal, a lot of times it's that reptilian brain trying to protect us because we've now identified who we are with some type of position or thought process or something. So if someone is critical of that position or thought process, now suddenly it's an attack on us, right? And I see this a lot of times with major social issues. So if we want to talk about gun rights, right? So we either talk one way or another. Anti-gun people are very staunchly anti-gun, and they've sort of positioned themselves and to a large degree their identity with being anti-gun. So for them to turn around and say, you know what, I think some armament is okay, right? Now they may have been through trauma that makes it so that to say that is tantamount to an attack upon themselves because that trauma is so strong and it is tied to their identity now, whether they like it or not, because sometimes trauma can bring uncontrollable thoughts and emotions and reactions from our body that and you see this kind of thing with PTSD, something that we as a society, or at least a large majority of us, I guess, I don't want to make an assumption. I don't have the data to back this up, but you guys tell me if I'm off the mark. I think that that phenomenon, this occurrence of trauma affecting in a long term the psyche of the subject or human that has gone through the trauma is a relatively new recognition. And anyway, you sometimes trauma can force us to take things personal, and that's where you have a very difficult time. But the fellowship is there to help guide us all through this journey, because it sucks to have to, like, for instance, somebody says, I like let's say you get rejected for a job interview. Some people take that very personally. Like, I must not be good enough. I must have something wrong with me. Me as a person have now been defined in some way by the actions or inactions of another, right? So we don't want to let someone else have that kind of power over us, right? So I would hope not. So by taking things personal, you now succumb to the power of someone else. And also, again, you make it so that the seeking of truth is obscured and by your emotional state, by your fight or flight response, right? So it's a way to quell that, right? And the last of the four agreements, I can always name three. It doesn't matter which three I start with. The fourth one is always hard. I always forget. All right, let's see. What do we say? Always never make assumptions. Always do your best. Don't take things personally. And the fourth is always be impeccable with your word, right? What does that mean? To be impeccable with something, right? So it basically means to be pure. But let's pull up another definition, because we like to be able to communicate with each other, and our vocabulary gives us strength and the capacity to express ourselves. And in fact, studies have shown that some of the most violent prison and repeat prison offenders, etc., often have extreme low vocabulary. And the thought process is that some of the folks that end up in prisons and through deviant acts, quote unquote deviant acts, do so, or at least violent acts, do so because of an inability to express themselves and the need and want to be able to express yourself in a coherent way to another. Basically, fellowship with another human being is so strong that people will not be able to function normally without the capacity to do so. All right, so impeccable, IMPECCABLE, adjective, of behavior, performance, or appearance in accordance with the highest standards of propriety, faultless, or down in, so for impeccable through theology, not liable to sin, right? So we're not getting that deep into it. So what we're saying is be impeccable with your word. Your word carries with it power. So when people, go around saying things with their words, sometimes people don't realize how, we say stuff like sticks and stones, make, whatever, and words never hurt me, etc. But the human being is a social creature. We just, we collectively have made it through, evolutionary time, through whatever, journeys the humankind has made. We've done so together, right? There aren't necessary. There's never in the history of humankind been, maybe very rarely, but you guys jump in and give us some insight on this. But there hasn't been a humanoid that is 100% solo. living off on their own as a hermit. Now, that's sort of a recent thing, but without technology, the human form just really isn't made for self-defense or even really self-preservation in the midst of nature anymore. We've been so removed. And so the thing is, even when we as a species were tightly bound by nature, we were bound together, and we fought the elements together, right? We made it through the winter together, not individually alone, staying away from each other, working our own individual plot of land like a cougar or something like that. That we simply, it just hasn't been any evidence of that. Now, if you have something to counter that, by all means, this is what the show is about: is your ability to chime in with your perspective on this. Superfan Chris says, great book with amazing message. Yes, yes, the 4 Agreements. I've talked about it a number of times. Let me bring this up here. As you can see, there's a 4 Agreements. I mean, I don't know. Here we go. I'll go. This is the guy that wrote it. I'm not getting monetized or remunerated. That's another cool word that you guys can learn. Remunerated. That is another finance term, actually, that people probably aren't familiar with. So remunerated, you might hear, if you ever have to study for a licensing exam, you may run into this. But anyway, I'm not being remunerated. Remunerated, in other words, compensated or paid for work rendered or services rendered. So remunerate, remunerate, verb, past tense, remunerated. Pay someone or pay for services rendered or work done. So that's, now a lot of people read that and they mispronounce it as remunerated, and that is not the case. It's remunerated, as in like money. It's like, not exactly, but it's similar root word, I'm pretty sure. All right, so we got also on the chat stream, we have Chatbot, who is here with us, and Chatbot loves us, or I don't know. I don't want to make an assumption if Chatbot is still with us. I don't know who you are. Maybe I know who you are. I'm trying to see if I can see anything, but all I can see is that it's Chatbot. So we love you too, Chatbot. Thanks for joining the show, and put something down. Let's see what you think. What are your thoughts on what we've been discussing? Now, the reason I brought up the 4 Agreements was basically it's a way for us to have some structure of discussion, right? Some way of, I guess, a scaffolding by which we can operate and agree to sort of work under these terms. So it's really simple, really easy, right? And now it doesn't. Now, one of the 4 agreements isn't don't be a jerk, but one of them is to always be impeccable with your word. So if your word, in the way you express it, is in the utmost, what was that word? That propriety, utmost propriety, then by definition, like, it's improper to be a jerk. So you're not being impeccable with your word, for instance. So I think these 4 agreements could work pretty well for fellowship, right? And it's all, so this thing hasn't started yet. If you're in the Jacksonville area or willing to drive to the Jacksonville area, we'll be putting together a first fellowship. The goal is by the end of January, we will have our first fellowship Sunday. And basically, I envision structuring it sort of like church. You come in and you, what was it? Hold on one second. Chat box. Oh, speaking to us from the future, please help us with what is going on in the future. And if you have any insights. Freddie B, what's up? Welcome to the show. First time watching, he says. Really enjoying it. I'll be back for sure. Great. Absolutely. Tell your friends and share your thoughts. You know, what do you think? Chatbot, there is not a call-in number right now, but you can use the Skype link if you have Skype, or if you prefer Facebook, we can experiment. Hold on a second. We maybe can experiment a little bit. So if you want to get on Facebook Live, for instance, I might be able to do that. I just don't have a real good way to patch in a phone at the moment. So, but if you want to try Facebook Live, you can do that if you'd like. Let's see. Skype name. The link is in the description. Skype name is, let me find. Oh no, does it not have the Skype name on here? This is supposed to be a link to my Skype profile. Let me see what's going on. James, what's my, okay, sign in as, here's my Skype email. Let me see this thing. Wonder, does the Skype not work? Maybe it doesn't work. So yeah, it should take you to the Skype profile, that link. Maybe, I don't know if I don't think I have a call-in number. And I did have one for a minute, but we'll see. I might be able to put something together. Superfan Chris says, I think it's a great idea to start a fellowship. So yeah, we're going to be starting the fellowship. Call-in number will be forthcoming. Tell you what, by next show, I'll get a call-in number. And then you can holler in. Or like I said, you could Skype in, and it could be audio only, or you can Facebook Live and audio only, or if you want to be seen on the show, you can do that too. Okay, so again, fellowship, just a concept. It's just no sermons. It's a discussion. It's fellowship, not worship. We're not worshiping anything. We're not, it's not about me or any specific fellowship leader. It's just simply, we'll even have donuts at the end and crap like that. It's like, and we can even sing songs. If anyone out there wants to be musical director, it'd be great to have a musical director. If it wouldn't be like hymns, it'd probably be like whatever the musical director wants to do, probably inspirational-ish songs, man in the mirror type shit. I don't know. You guys know more music stuff than I do, probably. So anyway, if there was a music director, that'd be dope. I don't want to pick the songs, but I think it'd be awesome for a whole congregation to be singing inspirational pop songs. And then we can have breakout sessions. If you're depressed, you want us to talk about depressed stuff, or actually you don't want to talk about depressed stuff, you want to get out of your depression, we can have some small, fellowship groups to that end, or whatever. It's all still in the air. So if you have some ideas, please share. What kind of things would you like to see in a fellowship. Remember, it's fellowship, not worship. We are here to talk to each other and do what humans do. I think one of the reasons why fellowship, this whole idea, is important is because what's lacking right now in our world is as much as we're connected through stuff like Facebook and the social medias and all that, socials, the truth of the matter is we're more and more alienated from each other. People aren't gathering in groups to really talk about some deep shit anymore. Everyone's getting offended about everything. We can't have civil discourse, can't disagree about something. We can't even express our feelings to each other anymore. So fellowship is supposed to be a place like that. Now, not to say that you're not going to get in political disagreements, not to say that, that some things might get heated, but that's what it's for. It can get as heated as it wants, but you shouldn't, it's not a place of judgment. So put it this way. If someone judges you because you lose your temper in having a discussion, I can't help that. I mean, you should be impeccable with your word and do your best and all of those things, right? And so getting frustrated is natural. But if you're taking things personal and lashing out therein, someone might judge you, and I can't blame them, right? But you're not going to be, if you go to fellowship wearing hot pants, no one's going to give a shit. At least I'm not going to give a shit, right? If other people give a shit, that's their problem anyway. So don't take it personal. And hopefully they're being impeccable with their word, and they wouldn't be talking shit anyway. So whatever, right? It doesn't matter what you wear, all that shit, that all the superficial judgmental stuff doesn't matter. We're here to talk with each other about shit that's bothering us, stuff that's on our mind. It could be current events. If you want to talk about the impeachment, shit, we could talk about impeachment stuff at fellowship, right? And it's not like the facilitator, not the preacher, the facilitator isn't necessarily the absolute judge of what is right or wrong. Their job is to promote critical thought, right? So a good facilitator is going to be able to play devil's advocate as well as defend a specific position. So regardless of how you feel yourself, you should be able to articulate something that is a universal message, etc. If you're the facilitator, or let me take that back. The facilitator should be able to recognize those types of inputs from the congregation, if that makes sense. So one of the things that I run into a lot when discussing political events, current events, all that kind of crap, is that people break one of the four agreements by making assumptions, right? So if I'm talking about, I don't know, let's say I'm talking about a heavy topic like I'm critical of capitalism, right? And I start talking about socialism in a positive light, right? A lot of people bring with that assumptions about what I'm talking about. So a lot of times I have to spend time combing away a lot of assumptions that have been sort of baked in by social conditioning, by propaganda, really is what it is. That's one particular thing. Now, some folks feel so strongly about what they believe that they are not willing to even shed away some of those baseline assumptions to have an open, critical discussion about something like that. And that's the crazy. And the craziest part about that is most of the time I'm not even in when people are getting real heated about it and really taking it personal or start lashing out by calling names or some things like that. It's generally because they are making an assumption and not willing to, God, stupid dogs, not willing to let that go. and aren't willing to listen to a counterpoint, right? So, for instance, I'm one of the reasons why I even have this show is to put my point of view out and hopefully have someone with a counter argument bring an argument that's so, locked tight that I have no wiggle room, and maybe I have to change and reevaluate my point of view, right? So I'm actually putting my points of view out on display for critical thought to basically attack it, right? But in doing that, I am also strengthening my opinions, because as it's bombarded, it's almost like, putting yourself through, when you're working out, or like better yet, kung fu conditioning. And so if any of you guys have ever gone through, like especially Hungar style kung fu or like tiger style kung fu, the harder as in like not soft, like crane style is a relatively soft style. Snake style is sort of a relatively soft style. Tiger style is a very hard and hard style based on strength. So a lot of times you're having very direct blows. Like if you're blocking something, you might block it directly with your arm instead of transferring the power some other way. Or you are hitting something directly with your fingers or knuckles or back, or even crane style. You might be hitting someone with the back of your wrist, right? You might be hitting someone with the tips of your fingers, right? If those parts of your body aren't conditioned, imagine hitting someone with the back of your wrist. Like, why would I even think of that as a hard point for exacting an offensive blow, right? But through conditioning, you can make all these parts of your body turn into like weaponry. You might have seen Muay Thai fighters kicking a banana tree until it falls over, right? They're conditioning their shins to be able to break someone else's shins, right? So if you don't condition and build up that bone and build up that callus on top of it, then you might break your shin upon someone else, right? So you don't want that. You need to condition beyond that. So let me take back what I said about the hard versus soft kung fu. So even crane style kung fu, I remember training. I mean, I'm not an adept at kung fu, but I just remember training to prepare my body to be able to handle, the rigors of kung fu and the fighting and whatever, which I wasn't fighting, but that's just part of the discipline. And I remember doing push-ups on the back, like with fingers like, hands like this on the back of my wrist. And I got to the point where push-ups on the back of my wrist weren't a big deal. In fact, push-ups on the back of my wrist on a basketball court was not a big deal. By the time I was done, I think I was only taking the class for maybe a semester. It was in college in Salt Lake City, of all places. By the end of it, let me tell you a little bit about conditioning. By the end of it, I was doing clap push-ups on a basketball court, right? Surface, right? Basketball court surface. Clap push-ups, meaning I do a push-up, clap, slam down, and catch myself before the next push-up on the back of my wrists. I was also doing eagle claw push-ups with, just 3 fingers, and being able to do clap push-ups with 3 fingers without collapsing the fingers, right? In order to condition. So part of the show, despite what some people I've been accused of, they've come back to say, oh, you got a show where you basically just blab your opinion out to the world. No. I put my opinion there to be hardened and conditioned by external forces, meaning I put this out here hoping, like, for instance, when I put out that I'm critical of capitalism, I'm hoping that a libertarian capitalist sycophant calls me up, or sorry, I don't have a call-in number, but either Skypes in or we'll be on the live chat and let's go to battle a little bit, right? And what I've come to find is I hear the same tropes over the same non-arguments over and over again, arguments that are too easy to deflect over and over again. And it's getting to the point where I don't know. Well, maybe I just need more people. So if you know some folks that want to debate or want to get into some, get into some deep discussion, send them over to the link, get them to subscribe. And when we want to have another show, we can talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. In fact, the more controversial, the better, because those are the very topics that we end up avoiding so many times, because of whatever reason. A lot of times it's because cancel culture, but cancel culture goes, in a way it's a free market, but in a way it's also manipulated, right? Because we know that there are curators. Hopefully we know this. We can agree that there are curators to our reality, right? The things that you see around you, the movies you watch, the advertisements that you see, the shows that are on TV, the things that are allowable to discuss and not allowable to discuss. All of these things are curating your reality, right? And what this show and what Fellowship is designed to do is break through the propaganda and the curation of reality to find and flesh out the truth of reality that we all share. We share it regardless of whether or not you believe it. The truth exists whether or not you exist, right? So it's in how do we find that truth together? Now, I'm not the arbiter of truth, right? All I can do is promote critical thought until we have critically thought ourselves to the truth, right? And so that's the point. When I say truth, it's absolute truth. That is, what does that mean? That means all that was, all that is, and all that will be is the truth, right? And that is literally the truth, the facts of the material reality of which we live. The whatever you want to call, if you believe in multiverse theory, I don't care if you believe we're in a simulation. At the end of the day, everything collapses into a shared reality to some degree, right? And even if it isn't, you can't prove it. I can't prove it anyway. So we won't even go down that road. So as far as we know, unless you can prove otherwise, we are sharing a singular reality, right? And your interpretation of that reality does not change that reality, right? If you think that the sun orbits the earth, then that's great that you think that, and you may believe that, and that might be your capital T truth. However, it's provable that it's not right. Galileo and Copernicus and friends have been able to, since way back then and over again, we've been able to back up the evidence with evidence, the truth of the universe and the solar system. Of course, we're still uncovering those things. So my point is, it's a journey that we should go together. It's like the Fellowship of the Ring, right? It's a bunch of guys or creatures or whatever you want to call it that go out to, do the ring thing, right? Together. This is a fellowship of truth, right? Fellowship of the truth. We're going to go seek the truth together. And sometimes people aren't going to like what they hear. And that's why the mantra of the show is the truth hurts. The truth can hurt its weakness, leaving your mind. All right. So we got 4 folks on, down to 3 as soon as I said that. Folks on YouTube, 3 folks, 3 very unique folks out of the billions of people on this earth. 3 people are here. In fellowship for the truth. So that is that's the main gist of the show. We're coming up on an hour. Is there anything? Oh, we got another person back in. What is on your mind? What's something that we could talk about real quick that that is something that's been bugging you? Did you see something that on your Facebook feed or Twitter or something that pissed you off or made you happy? Doesn't always have to be things that piss you off. Is there a testimony that you want to share with the world? Those kinds of things. It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. It's something, I mean, it matters in that you participate. The subject, we'll see. I'm not going to make assumptions, right? About what participation, hopefully you're adding to this discussion, but that is, the whole point of the show. And with the outro for 2019, looking back, 2019 was a tough year for me. I know a lot of people had really tough years. I know that there's a lot of hardship that's coming forward into the future for a lot of people, and that concerns me. Now, of course, we should all, hopefully all of us are concerned about our brothers and sisters that are all around us globally, but also specifically, I mean, if we are living wherever we live, hopefully we care about the people in the society we live in. It worries me that more and more people are going to have a hard time, because I really don't see a solution coming from any of the people that are leading our country, quote unquote, leading our country. I think that most of you guys can agree with me that you do see a prevalence of psychopathy in corporate and government leadership. And I think that we've basically created a culture where that type of spectrum is rewarded. And someone who's altruistic, who cares for their fellow, even at their own sacrifice, that type of behavior is tolerated, and only promulgated to children, and once you escape childhood, the harsh realities of the world kick in, right? And basically your fellow brother and sister become enemies, fighting against you for scarce resources. All right, Superfan Chris says, I will say my testimony is simply that you can manifest anything you want to happen in your life by simply using your mind and the thoughts therein. 2019 truly was a cleansing year. Yeah, I mean, so some folks, we got 3 other folks on YouTube with us, our Facebook people. They always come and go. Anyway, YouTube's where it's at for this. Eventually, I'll have audio only on all the normal podcast streaming platforms. Right now, here we are on YouTube together. But yeah, it sounds like some really crazy sort of mumbo jumbo, right? What? You can manifest anything by simply using your mind? What? So I know it sounds crazy. And, there's some other, it's not like a brand new concept. I think a lot of people have heard of the law of attraction. There's a book out, there's a little movie about it. And basically that if you think about something enough and truly believe in it and imagine yourself at that point, at that place with that goal in mind, that you will attain that goal. Like, for instance, let's say you wanted to buy a new car. So law of attraction would be like you go to the dealership and take a look at the car, and you're imagining yourself driving this car and where you're going to go and all these little details of the reality of owning that car. And in time, that will manifest, right? Now, here's the trick. How much time becomes a question, right? So that's where people lose faith. Faith as in not trying to talk in like a religious sense, but this notion that, and I think there's an explanation in physical reality that I think is behind the notion of manifesting, because, and this is something where It's not a new concept either. What I'm about to say, Napoleon Hill talks about having a definiteness of purpose, right? In Think and Grow Rich, he talks about the definiteness of purpose, that you have a purpose and you've defined it and you're heading towards it, right? The problem becomes when you don't have that, when you're lost in this world and you don't really know what the fuck am I supposed to do to survive another day, or how do I get this now money so I don't lose my house, or how do I do this or that, right? And we get bombarded by anxieties, and we get and reality, and these types of things, and we end up focusing on those things. So what becomes our definiteness of purpose? If all you're focused on is how you're not going to make the mortgage payment, well, your definiteness of purpose almost becomes not being able to pay the mortgage, right? But if your definiteness of purpose is something that's even greater than even the now need, right? And this is where this is where the sort of ethereal and odd things sometimes come in. Sometimes is that as you continue on your path, even these obstacles sometimes will become thresholds for you to cross that show the path, that become the path, right? And you have to have a vision that sees past those obstacles, right? So when you have that definiteness of purpose, or if you have that vision in your mind to manifest or to attract the end goal, if you couple that idea, the definiteness of purpose, with another concept, not new, but this notion that, as Confucius says, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, right? So you have to take that step. So action is crucial. And in fact, there's I was talking to an old friend of mine right before the show, and he said a phrase that I thought was really illuminating. And he said that movement provides clarity, right? Movement provides clarity. And so at first that seems sort of obscure to me. Like, what does that mean? Movement provides clarity. And the thing is, if you stay stagnant in one place, how will you know where your path is, right? Because a lot of times, and here's the thing, if you already know where your path is, then why are you stagnant? You see what I mean? You have lost clarity in your goal because you're no longer moving towards it. But movement will grant clarity. It's like another, I saw this meme the other day, and it was really interesting. It was basically, it showed a path through a forest that was covered in fog, and the caption said, or the text said, "How much of your path must be cleared for you to move forward?" Right? And a lot of us are in a point in our lives where we're not sure, where do I even take the first step? Look, Confucius, I'm down with you. Even if it takes 1,000 miles, I'm down to take the first step. Where do I even go? I'm surrounded by fog, right? And so sometimes it's simply, okay, well, first of all, you need to figure out where your journey of 1,000 miles will take you. Where is it that you're even trying to be? And that is something where in our current paradigm, we are forced through what we consider pragmatism or other practicalities to choose one path or another, or clear the fog from one path versus another path because society said that's prudent, or your fears have said that was prudent, when in your heart, you know that you're destined for some definite purpose that isn't being immediately met, right? But sometimes those are just, stones on our path. Sometimes some paths meander and link back to the main path. And so anyway, let's see what we've got. Let's see, we've got in live chat. We've got quite a few inputs. Here we go. Superfan Chris says, every religion states that you can do this, but it is written in different forms or metaphors. Most people simply do not exercise this power that they have. Yeah, sure. And, I think that maybe the obscurity may be purposeful. I don't know. I purposely don't trust religion as a social construction. Now, some people think it's like handed from on high and some ecclesiastical source or something like that, or ethereal source. I don't know. I'm not trying to get into that. Hopefully, put it this way. Most religious people are only religious in one religion, right? And so, like, I don't know, if they're Christian, they probably don't care if someone says, you better pray to Poseidon before you cross the sea, because Poseidon rules the sea. And they'd say, pish posh, I don't need to conjure, a prayer to Poseidon or sacrifice. I pray to this God. Okay, well, you've now dismissed someone else's God that they hold paramount, right? Put it this way. I feel the same way a Christian would feel about Poseidon, but just add one more religion. Whatever yours is. That's basically my point of view on that. Freddie B, one of the hardest things to see right now is how certain people are getting us to fight against each other so they can do whatever they please, blinding us with hatred. Absolutely true. That's why this podcast exists. Again, the fellowship, to get through the bullshit, to see through the propaganda. Reality is curated. It is very purposeful that we are fighting against each other. What we must always remember is that Coke exists while Pepsi exists. In fact, Coke can play off Pepsi to benefit itself, and Pepsi can play off Coke to benefit itself while both exist. You see what I mean? And they can both fight to corner or have larger market share, back and forth, whatever, but they will exist together. McDonald's exists while Burger King exists, right? And so there's no real need for monopoly per se, because it's almost better. Well, monopoly ultimately is best, but it's too obvious because we have so many we've had in our past antitrust and anti-monopoly rules, and so a blatant monopoly is something that gets called out, right? But even in the political discourse, right? So we're probably not gonna see blatant monopoly occur, but having two sides is very purposeful. Because in reality, the two sides are a singular side with only superficial differences that are made to sound or look like core differences, if that makes sense. And we can hash through that. That's what the show's about. So as you see this kind of bullshit, let's talk about it, right? Freddie B says, we need to see the bigger picture. Yes. It's bigger than us. The issues aren't your neighbor or your cousins who you don't agree with. We need to be able to talk with each other, to work together, not against. Superfan Chris says, great points, Freddie B. I absolutely agree with Superfan Chris. Superfan Chris says, the propaganda has become our reality. Yes, it has. Absolutely. We've become conditioned to an extent. Yes, to a large extent. And when I talk about propaganda, and this is, again, something that I've heard happen many times or been accused of many times, is that thinking in my mind that I am immune to propaganda. I'm not immune to propaganda. I simply am trying to fight it as much as I can. And so the first thing I have to do is become aware of it. Now, there's some propaganda that I probably have just taken at face value and went ahead and jumped on it. So But I don't know exactly what that propaganda is. I know that in the past, I've succumbed to, for instance, capitalist propaganda. And I know that even saying that to some people, especially those that have been conditioned through Cold War propaganda and even afterwards, um, that 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 critique, the honest reflection and calling by name of capitalism, which is so tantamount somehow to the existence of America in some people's minds, that that people get this visceral reaction in their gut, like they feel it, like an attack, an affront, like they start getting sort of like jittery, you know? And so that's how deep propaganda can be sometimes. It could be propaganda that is about, American exceptionalism. It could be about, who knows? Could be race-based propaganda. All sorts of stuff floats around, right? When we say propaganda, there's a big negative connotation to it. But when it was first introduced, I think in the early 30s by the nephew of Sigmund Freud, Ed Bernays, when he wrote that book, it was basically the book. It was called Propaganda. He basically coined the term, I believe, for that. And it was an open manual on how to manipulate society writ large, right? So, and it wasn't until after World War II, after what happened with propaganda, we really didn't see we didn't see it looked at in a negative way until then. And what was it, right? We saw the propaganda from the Nazis. We saw propaganda from the Japanese. We saw propaganda from the Allied forces, including the United States, right? And that was purposeful. And it was written, a manual for mass manipulation was written that was followed. Now, after that revelation for the general populace to know that people can be manipulated at large into doing crazy things with propaganda, then it started having negative connotation, right? But what's the fancy word? What's the feel-good word for propaganda? Public relations. So if you work for a corporation who has a PR department, public relations department, you can replace that literally, absolutely, not even with any hyperbole, right? What's hyperbole? Exaggeration, etc. I'm not trying to make an exaggeration or false claim. I'm saying that you can literally swap them out. They mean the same thing. So your PR department is manipulating the society or mass group of people into believing a paradigm, right? For the benefit of the party promulgating said propaganda. You see what I mean? Anyway, that's what PR is. So news is propaganda. The public statements made by any corporation or business entity, that's all propaganda. Practically any public statement at this point is propaganda, because it is almost always, not always, but it seems to me, in my perception, which may be false, let's talk about it. In my perception, I can't remember. Anyway, people be talking shit, and most of the time it's lies. That's what I'm basically saying. The shit that people say is generally a lie to protect themselves. And if that's the case, then that's, number one, breaking one of the 4 agreements. And number 2, that's propaganda, you see. So anytime you manipulate and use specific words to get a specific feeling out of the specific group of people, That's propaganda. You're manipulating people, right? All right. Freddie B says, one of the things I've told my kids in one way or another is that in the overall timeline of the earth, we're here for a finite speck of time. Don't choose to be a speck of shit. Hey, that's a really good point. And that's a major existential point, right? Think about this. And this is something people confuse themselves with and look back and lament upon, is the fact that you don't get time back. You can make money in any way, somehow, some way. You can lose that money and you can make that money back, but you can't get the time back. If you have a kid, you only get one first step, right? If you got a kid, you only get one first birthday, right? You only get these certain experiences. If you don't have to have a kid. You could have whatever. Your life is to be lived, and every moment of your life can't be recounted. You can recount it, but it can't be relived. So once you've allocated that life and that life span, that lifetime, you can't undo it. You can only do something in the future that will make up for the actions that you've done. You see what I mean? So that's a major point. So you live one life. How are you going to live it, and what impact on the world are you going to make? And I think that this message gets caught up in the strange neurosis that our society is under right now. We are surrounded by conflicting messages, right? We have a society that will martyr themselves in the name of their family, martyr themselves to work, to other obligations that provide, quote unquote, provide physical, material things for their families, when what they are neglecting their family with is time with them. And, especially we see this with men, at least I've seen in my experience. Now, not to say that women don't do it too. But I feel like that's almost like seen in the culture that it's a quote unquote man's duty to sacrifice even their children's development, their family's development, their personal development in favor of monetary and material gain under the guise of providing for the family. And so we really have this dichotomy that no wonder people get like anxiety and neurotic, right? You have limited time on this earth. What will you do with it? And you hear that a lot. And sometimes what that does is it puts extra undue pressures on people. I only have this one life. What am I doing to maximize my time? Blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that gives us this type of anxiety is capitalist realism. The reality that if you can't make a certain amount of money by a certain amount of time, that your life is called into question. Your shelter, your food, your necessities of life get called into question, right? Now, a lot of folks, when I talk about that, they say, what, the government going to provide, or da-da-da? I'm not asking for that. Now, I believe that under the current exploitative system that we live under, then yes, the government should provide that, because there's no alternative to exploitation. If there was an alternative to exploitation, perhaps the government wouldn't need to provide it. However, chances are the government would need to provide a pathway or vector for the alternatives, right? So what's the alternative for exploitation? Well, the alternative would be to live off the land, to live independent of the need to find someone who will exploit your labor in order to make a profit off of what you've done. You see what I mean? Now, some people justify that paradigm, the fact that someone could do all the work while someone else reaps the benefit of that based on a wage or remuneration that is conditioned upon a captive market. If there's no alternative but to enter into exploitation, then that means that the wage that is available will be artificially low by default, because we have to. You are coerced into participating. So if you have to participate, then the wages that you agree to are automatically lower, right? Now, if some people said, I don't want to participate, I'd rather go take my chances off the land, and I'll just go, I can get some solar panels and get electricity that way. I can live off grid, right? And you could say, well, nobody wants to do that. That's stupid, James. Well, go look up the off grid people. Go look up the homesteaders and go tell me I'm dumb. There's a whole movement of people trying to get the fuck out of this system and go live off the land and go do some shit. And yeah, they don't get all of the amenities and all the special stuff of modern life. Now, I'm not a primitivist. Doesn't mean you can't take technology with you. Of course you can. And people do. And some people love it and some people don't. Right? But if the alternative was there, let the chips fall as they may. But if half your population says, fuck working at Walmart or fuck working at this minimum wage bullshit, I'm just going to go live off the land. I'm going to wake up at crack of dawn. I'm going to go till the field or run my, monitor my hydroponic system and make sure there's no shit on top of my solar panels and whatever. I'm going to gather my vegetables and fruits and whatever the hell I'm growing. And by the time 2 o'clock rolls around, or probably not even 2, probably like noon rolls around, you're probably done with everything. Now you can go do what do you want to do? You know what's crazy? Chances are people will pick up a craft just because that's just what people do. People like to do shit. People get bored. They want to do stuff. Not everybody wants to just sit around and play video games all day, especially if you're living out in nature and shit and whatever. Hey, maybe you want. What a great life for some people. Wake up at the crack of dawn, tend to your solar panel, pick your hydroponic vegetables, and then do whatever, maybe cook some food, prep some stuff, can some shit. I don't fucking know. I don't know. And then you play video games the rest of the day from your, solar panels and your battery. Who paid for it? I don't know. Let's talk about it. It could be a government grant, just like land grants were granted to white people in the 30s or before that even. Right? That was done in the past. Why can't we do it again? Right? It was done to benefit a certain set of people, and they benefited a whole lot, and their children benefited, and their children's children, and their children's children benefited a whole lot from that. So why couldn't we look at a similar type of situation to help our fellow brothers and sisters and out of the paradigm of exploitation that we see now? Right? Or going back to all this anxiety, if we lived in a paradigm where workers were treated as partners and not as rental tools, then things would be different as well, right? We said, look, chattel slavery, you can't own somebody anymore, but it's okay to rent them. You can rent them. You can pay for them by the hour or pay for them by week or salary, some other form, right? But you just can't own them outright, right? My contention is, no, if you need help from a human being, then they are partner with you. Like, for instance, if for some reason, I say this all the time, for some reason, we can totally understand that if you want to partner with me and you give me $100, you could buy shares of my company, and now you're part owner automatically. You didn't build shit. All you did was gave me some money. Here you go. Here's a piece of that. A worker can give 100 years of their life and get nothing in ownership back. They are paid a wage that is artificially low for the paradigm I already explained, right? And they may not even have a vector, a pathway at all for ownership. Like, for instance, if I worked at Fidelity Investments, right? Great place to work, great benefits in relation to the paradigm, right? I could work there 25 years. It is a private LLC. Even if I wanted to take my remuneration, right, my pay for services rendered, if I wanted to take my wage and I wanted to buy shares of Fidelity, I could not. You see, there is no vector for ownership. Now, if they granted me some, then sure, maybe. But there's no general vector for a laborer to get equity in that. So you could work there 30 years. And by the end of 30 years, you have no ownership in something that you helped to build and maintain, right? But if you gave $30 to buy a share of stock in some business, then that $30 represents equity and ownership, and you get a piece of it when it liquidates. You get a piece of the dividend when they're shared. You get your stock value goes up as the company valuation goes up. The workers should be treated as partners and not as rental commodities, right? That's all I'm saying. Under that paradigm, imagine you worked at a place. A lot of people, we got 4 people on right now. Of those 4 people, I bet at least all of you have probably worked somewhere more than 5 years, probably more than 10 years. Imagine if after 5, after 10 years that you decide to leave and you have 10 years worth of equity that you could either sell back to the company and get a massive infusion of cash, or you can hold that equity maybe for another 10 years or something like that, right? You gave 10 years of service. You don't get to hold the equity forever. I don't believe so, right? So maybe you get a mirror after that. You've left, you get to hold those shares for 10 years, and maybe they have diminishing, maybe the amount of shares diminishes over time. So by the time your 10th year of share ownership exists, then you're down to 0 shares, right? I don't know. Let's talk about it. But at the end of the day, imagine if you had a chance to do that. You owned 10 years worth of shares in a company that you helped to build as a laborer. And now you can get dividend income based on the profits that company made. So what does that mean to you? What does that mean to our brothers and sisters in our world, especially in our country? At least we can't make, actually, the United States can create new paradigms by simply living the paradigm, right? We can create a system by simply acting in a certain way. That's how powerful the United States is. So we don't have to do it with guns and force and all that kind of shit. We can actually do it through leadership if we were truly a leader country, which I have to say we're not right now. No, we're absolutely not. We are a stomping toddler of a country. We are and I say we because we finally have a president that matches the actions of the United States. Hate to say it, right? Does that mean the people of the United States? No, I'm talking about I'm talking about the actions of the government, which is supposed to be the people of the United States. And I'm tired of that, personally. I'm tired of our country looking like a self-centered, temper tantrum throwing toddler, right? Who wants all of the toys, who wants to sandbox all to themselves, and they want to kick everyone else out by force if necessary, right? That's who has hijacked our country, right? I think most people, right wing and left wing, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, even that's contrived. All of that's contrived, right? All the people in our country, I think, can agree that our government has been hijacked and is corrupt and is full of psychopaths. That's just a simple truth. But how do we change that? So, that part of that is hopefully through fellowship, we will learn to communicate with each other once again. And through fellowship, maybe we will see that the government is us, and that we have to believe, we have to have definiteness of purpose, a vision of an end goal where the government is the people again, right? How do you do that? If you have to fight against capital, Because remember, what is motivating the government to act the way it does? Is it because of a bunch of socialists saying, oh, we should be socialist because we're going to get in power or some shit? Or is it more likely that a bunch of capitalists with a whole bunch of money have bought and paid for, whatever I get the term is, our politicians to enhance the system, the paradigm for the benefit of capital, right? Really think about this critically, right? Is it the poor communists and socialists that are there bribing our elected officials? Or could it be the capitalists with their massive money buying the, what's it called? The politicians. Now you could say, well, James, but the colleges are telling all the kids to be communists and socialists. So that's what I'm like, wait. So are the kids buying the politicians? Because at the end of the day, the politicians are bought. Who's buying them? If it's not, obviously the kids aren't buying them, right? So even if they pop out of the college womb as socialists, who's buying the politicians? It's not the socialists. So really have to think about this critically, right? And that is another reason for the show, is to be able to talk about these things. Now, some people might disagree with me and might be like, oh my God, I can't believe James is saying that. He must not be American, or he doesn't love America, or I don't know, some other bullshit. But guess what? The Constitution doesn't outline an economic platform or paradigm. Show me where. It doesn't. Okay. Now, even if it did, I have to say at the end of the day, that's great and all, whatever reference you want to make to economics and the Constitution. But our country was founded under that Constitution, and our country was founded as a slave nation under that Constitution. So the economic paradigm that was chosen by the leaders that established this country was a system of bondage, right? So look, how much merit could we even put into a economic system that was promulgated by the Constitution? So, right. So we really have to look at this critically and independently of tradition, of what people think America was founded on, right? It was founded as a slave nation. So come on, we can't really go back to the founding. We just can't. It's like, look, if your dad's a mob boss and he killed half the city, you can't just go back and say, well, he wasn't really a mob boss. He didn't really kill them. I mean, his henchmen killed them. So it's not like he did it. Oh, okay. Right. Come on. You can't change the past. Now, does that mean you're culpable or whatever, or that you are responsible for your pops offing anybody that didn't want to pay protection money? Of course not. Right. You're not at fault. You, however, are at fault if you pick up the gun or if you tell the henchmen to start killing people. When you decide to carry on the tradition, right, of the mob boss or of the founding fathers who founded a slaver nation, right? That is where you become responsible, right? Or our inability, or our not an inability, let me take that back, because our abilities can always be enhanced. So maybe we're unable now, but our unwillingness, right? Our unwillingness to critically examine some of these things that we find that we believe are so crucial or so core to our national culture or whatever the fuck, I don't know. It simply isn't true. Now, if you think it's true and you want to defend that point, please, by all means, that's what the show is for, right? It's not that I think I'm 100% right. Right now, I think I'm right because I haven't been proven or shown wrong. Let's talk about it. Prove me wrong. It's not only a challenge, but I'm asking nicely, right? All right, looks like we got one person on Facebook. Welcome. What are your thoughts? I think I even put a On the Facebook, actually, sorry, YouTube, you didn't get this because YouTube doesn't offer a, wait, does it? Let me see, hold on. I don't think YouTube offers a poll. I don't think so. There was a poll on Facebook. I don't think anybody participated in it. Maybe they did, but Facebook's not telling me. And the poll was, what is truth? And the two options was, the first one was, depends on your perspective. And then the other choice was, the truth is independent of your perspective, right? But I don't know what people are believing. So if you have a point of view on YouTube, please share that. So what are your thoughts, Freddie B? I 100% agree that we definitely don't want to leave this world as a speck of shit. And, you know, even something that seems so obvious, like you don't want to choose to be a speck of shit. Some people define quote unquote speck of shit in different ways. Like, I'll give you an example. Most of us, I think, you now correct me, 4 people on YouTube, and how many people on Facebook? 1 person on Facebook. Dang it. Now I was looking up Facebook. Now it blanked out. Anyway, what was I? Someone on the live chat, remind me what I was just talking about. Anyway, I think I was giving props to Freddie B. 100%. Oh yeah, the speck of shit. It's different depending on who you are. For instance, the Atlas Society. This is a page on Facebook. They are basically Ayn Rand, I don't know, They're fans of the Randian author, or the Randian concepts promulgated by Ayn Rand. Supposedly, she went by Anne up until, I don't know, supposedly until after her death, and then people started calling her Ayn. In fact, in various interviews, she's referred to and responds to Anne, but for whatever reason, all of the people that love her call her Ayn Rand. All right, let's see. I have them liked on Facebook. Let me give you a little taste of the Atlas Society. So the reason I'm bringing them up is because, for instance, they would define, they often post things citing selfishness as a virtue, right? Selfishness as a virtue, if you can imagine that. Hold on a second. Oh God, I don't know what just happened. All right, hold on a second. Whoa. Here we go. All right, so here's the Atlas Society, big old fat picture of Ayn Rand, I Heart, and Ayn Rand. Here we go. Here's the Atlas Society. Look at these people who love it. Look, you see their picture. Those are probably the admins or some crap. Here you can buy some mugs. Look at this. Here they're full. Whoa. Their premises, or the premises that they use, as in a premise of something, are chock full of inaccuracies and straw men. And they actually say stuff, again, like selfishness is a virtue, and that altruism is basically a wolf in sheep's clothing. So here we go. Here's an example. Simple Guide to Communism, right? So Marxist communism, if you've read the Communist Manifesto, Marxist communism envisions a society without a state and without class, in which all people work together without, having the government or anything. We all just have reached a level of ascended mentality that we can work and live together on the earth or any environment. And basically it becomes luxury space communism, right? We're all part of the federation, which is just all good to all people and whatever, right? Now, you could say it is a utopian vision that may not be attained. Great. Okay. Let's talk about it. But what they do instead is use straw men. A straw man argument is a fake argument or a really sort of dumb argument that's set up in such a way that you can knock it down. It's like fighting a straw man, right? So you fight the straw man, hopefully you'll win because it's made to be defeated. So here I haven't even read the whole this thing yet. I'm about to read it. Because I can't read and talk at the same time. My brain is not that good. This is undoubtedly full of straw men and full of inaccuracies and general ignorance. But let's see how bad it is. Simple Guide to Communism. Establish a new communist dictatorship. By what means? Through what state? If it's communist, then it can't be dictatorship. There's no state. We are communal. We are working as a community. We are cooperative, right? So it's not a dictatorship. Rob and kill the successful. Again, who? Under what pretext or what state, right? Force the rest to work for free. Who does this? Again, Marxist communism doesn't have a state or class. Run out of food and supplies. Okay, again, a big assumption. If we're all working together, I don't see how we would do that. Economic collapse and starvation. Again, this is just the normal propaganda trope that we hear from the capitalists, right? Say it wasn't real, quote unquote. Well, again, if you read Marx's work, and which they have a big shot of his head, so I'm assuming they're talking about Marxist communism. Marxist communism envisions a classless, stateless society. So all of this totalitarian or dictatorship or doing these things in the name of a communist state is all straw man based on purposeful obfuscation or just plain ignorance. It's a lot of time it's hard to tell. And I'm not trying to be facetious or trying to be a smart aleck or anything like that, or speak with hyperbole. No, I am only sticking to the truth. So let's see what else we got. Anyway, I don't know. There's so much crap on here. I don't know. That is what the left does. It used liberty to destroy liberty. All right, so here's another example of something moronic on the Atlas Society. All right, so Mark Levin, who I've called out many times on Twitter, but he won't respond because I'm only clout chasing him, because as a quote unquote nobody in the Twitter sphere, I can't be bothered with his time. But I have called him a charlatan, and if he wants to talk about it, let's do it. Anyway, that is what the left does, right? What even is the left? What even is that? It's some kind of nebulous this caricature of a thing that has been concocted by people like him and Fox News type places and whatever. That is what the left does. It used liberty to destroy liberty. Pretty stupid statement. And here's the thing. The term liberal right? Which now in the non-conservative circles of the world, liberal is being defined separately from left. In fact, liberal is basically the universally hated person. So people on the left hate liberals and people on the right hate liberals, right? Why is that? Now, some people might find that shocking because, wait, what are you saying, James? That makes no sense. According to all of the things that I've learned and seen and the reality that's curated around me. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's on purpose, right? We talked before about the divide, a purposeful divide that's been created to cause infighting amongst the populace. Now, why? Why would we want to create infighting? Well, as Freddie B said, if we're fighting each other, guess who we're not paying attention to, right? Those people on high, right? So, yeah, it's on purpose. And because remember, like for instance, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat leader of the House, I believe she's still leader of the House, or something. I don't remember what, but she's a major figure in the political scene on the quote unquote left, as in not Republican. She's a Democrat, whatever, right? She is, I believe, tricking the people that would ally with her into thinking that she's actually doing something with this whole impeachment thing. The reality is, in the grand scheme of things, in her own self-service, she is more valid with Trump in office than she ever will be with Trump out of office. Imagine this, right? If Trump is out of office, now Pelosi has to contend with the AOCs, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Bernie Sanders, all these young upstarts who are pushing closer and closer an actual class conscious leftist perspective. The liberal Nancy Pelosi does not want that. What is a liberal? Liberal can almost be quintessentially defined as people like Bill Clinton, like Obama, that will tell you some platitudes that make you feel good about gay people or women's rights or something. But meanwhile, there is a class struggle that's happening that they will completely ignore, and in fact will obfuscate the truth to protect it, right? They will protect the status quo because it benefits them. And they will continue, despite the systemic problems that exist, they would rather turn a blind eye to the class struggle and deflect to things like, right, instead of looking at the contradictions of capital that were outlined in both Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations and in Capital by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels, right? All of the things that we're seeing now have been illuminated. Reduced wages, stuff like outsourcing, things like that. Back in the 1800s, right? Karl Marx predicted this, and we're living it now. This has all been known, right? And it's very purposeful that it's done this way, right? And that is the liberal. The liberal is more likely to praise the fact that Raytheon has a woman CEO than to recognize a class struggle and the contradictions of capital, including automation, which will drive our brothers and sisters further and further into despair, into the same despair, I might add, that we've already fucking seen in this country. We've already seen it. The capitalist amnesia is so strong. The propaganda is so strong that we don't even know that striking miners were slaughtered by the company that was employing them. Right? That striking, again, miners were slaughtered by the National Guard because the capitalist called the National Guard on them because they wanted them to keep working, period. And if you don't want to work, then you are getting shot, right? That happened in our country. People died in the mines, in meatpacking plants. At any place you work, you're probably going to die. Or you get raped if you're a woman. Or someone's position of hierarchy is used against you. Or you're paid wages that are below survival. Because it's actually cheaper, right? It's actually cheaper to pay someone a wage who will then die because they can't afford to live than it is to buy someone and keep them alive. Think about that. I've actually had a libertarian defend the Civil War on economic grounds, saying, not even the Civil War, let me back that up. Saying that the abolition of slavery of chattel slavery was due to the economics being more favorable under wage slavery. Think about that. Because it costs less to pay a wage that's below survival and easier to replace the worker under the current paradigm than it is to buy and maintain in order to extract return on investment. To buy and maintain a slave is more expensive. So this is the paradigm we live in, and we have people defending it tooth and nail, right? That is the system we're talking about. But until we look at this with open eyes and with an absolute truth and honesty, we will never be able to solve these problems. And that's why I'm hoping. And I don't have all the answers to everything, but I know that collectively, between all of our brains, we probably do. Right. And on that note, man, it's like an hour and 51 minutes in. What's up? Thank you guys for staying with me this whole time. I know we've been just yapping and yapping. I got some really good input on the live chat. So keep it up. Tell your friends, people that resonate with this, even people that don't resonate. Look, I'm looking for an argument, not an argument, a discussion that we can have. Let's talk about it. Let's bring in some conflicting ideas. Let's see how much they really squirm. Because I ain't lying, man. There's some squirmy ass people. I've even gone to the Atlas Society. I troll them all the time on purpose. I purposely try to piss them off as much as possible. Why? So I can get a reaction from them to finally, hopefully, get that guy or girl that's so uber smart, the ubermensch, that can then say, James, you're totally wrong because, but I haven't, because my perspective is grounded in material reality, and all I have to do is simply describe material reality, and it will back me up, right? So the truth will, in fact, set us free someday. All right, so signing out. Again, we got Seprock Beats. Freddie B, happy to join. Looking forward to the next one. Please do join in. And remember, it'll be Tuesdays at 9 p.m. live show. And until then, peace out. And I will catch y'all, next Tuesday? Maybe it'll be a Sunday session. Click on the subscribe button and the little bell, because sometimes I do impromptu Sunday sessions or Sunday sessions, which just sort of pop up out of nowhere. And so get the notification so we can talk about something on those days. So again, I'm out. Seprock Beats. Peace.